You are listening to the Body Charge podcast, and I'm your host, Sandy Sanderson. I'd like to welcome to the Body Charge podcast today, Alison Bladh. Alison is a registered nutritional beauty therapist, having worked in the health and wellness industry for over 30 years, and she specializes in menopausal women's health. She now runs her own online clinic from Sweden, helping women worldwide manage the negative symptoms of menopause. Her mission is to support her clients with bespoke changes to diet, health, and lifestyle so they can harness their hormones and get their confidence and sparkle back. So we've titled today's talk, Sail Through Menopause and Get Your Sparkle Back. That really caught my eye about the sparkle, because I went through menopause over a decade ago. I know it wasn't really a super pleasant thing, but I learned to manage it a lot better, as we do through experience and through sharing information with each other. So Alison, why do women often lose their sparkle during menopause? They can lose interest in sex, energy levels may plummet, they can become very irritable, sleep can become a problem, they can become over-emotional and extra sensitive, and hot sweats can cause great discomfort. So how do we transition through this phase, and what kind of things can go wrong?
Yeah, great question, Sandy. It's you think of the menopause, it's called the menopause transition. So it's really made up of perimenopause, which is the first stage, and that on average happens around the age of 45. It's very individual, so it can happen earlier. There's actually 1 in 100 women that have menopause before the age of 40. And that can be due to many other reasons, whether it's medication or illness or surgery, etc. But when we're looking at the natural menopause, this happens around 45, perimenopause. And this is where things just start to become very unbalanced, because what happens is your hormone levels start to be a bit all over the place. Perimenopause can last for many years, but on average, you go into what we call menopause at the age of 51. Again, that is very individual. And what happens in menopause, it means that you haven't had a menstruation for a year. So you're in perimenopause, your hormones are all a bit chaotic. And then when you stop menstruating, you're actually in what we call menopause. And then all the time after that, you're in postmenopause. So that's really the rest of a woman's life. I mean, we're living much longer, so it can be 30 plus years. What happens in perimenopause when things start to become unbalanced? That's when you can start experiencing all the symptoms that you mentioned, Sandy, like hot flashes, mood swings, irritability, weight gain. You know, the list goes on. There's over 40 different menopausal symptoms that women can experience. Estrogen and progesterone during perimenopause, you know, you're still menstruating, you're still fertile, but they just get a bit unbalanced. It's a bit like a roller coaster. You know, 1 month the estrogen can be really high, and then the next month it could be low, progesterone can be low. Things are just a bit crazy. And that's when we really start to experience, you know, some women experience these debilitating symptoms. Again, it's very individual. Some women just sail through and don't experience any of them. But it's to do predominantly with the decline in estrogen and progesterone, because what we have to remember is estrogen it's a master hormone. It's absolutely not just a sex hormone. It's needed for so many processes in the body. It's really key for our metabolism and our metabolic health as well. You know, it's needed for bone health, heart health. There's a lot of very interesting research coming out now about brain health and a possible link between dementia and lack of estrogen. So it really is a key hormone. So when it starts to decline, that's when we start seeing all these symptoms, because our body needs this hormone. So that's really a summary of what happens.
Yes, I did a bit of research myself when I was going through that stuff, and found that with my own symptoms, it was very severe magnesium deficiency. And so there's a swinging door between excessive stress, magnesium deficiency, and low estrogen, because the association is that estrogen helps preserve your magnesium loss. So if your estrogen plummets too low, you're going to be losing more magnesium and undergoing a lot more stress. And so these things interplay, like it's a negative feedback loop. And with myself, by increasing the magnesium supply, I was able to calm down, relax a bit more, reduce the stress, and then I started to feel better and better. So my question next is, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do we get low in estrogen first, or is it a nutritional thing first, or does excessive stress cause the hormones to get out of balance? Or, you know, can it go both ways? And how do you as a practitioner work out what's going on with someone in that respect? How do you diagnose?
Yeah, a great question. What we have to remember is that menopause is a totally natural process, and it will happen to every single woman, you know, depending on age, of course, when it actually happens. But it is a process, and your estrogen and progesterone levels will decline. Full stop. I mean, that really isn't up for debate, because that happens. So that's really the thing that happens first. And when this happens, so when the levels decline, that's when you start seeing all these imbalances happening, like you pointed out about magnesium. You know, magnesium is, as we know, is crucial for so many things in the body. But what we need to think about when we come into menopause is, you know, one key area is bone health. And magnesium is needed for bone health. Women in menopausal age are at higher risk of osteoporosis due to one of the factors is the lack of estrogen, because estrogen is needed for bone health. So, you know, you need your magnesium there, and we really need to keep our bones strong. Heart health, again, magnesium is needed for that. So it's really important to look at when I work with clients and see their mineral and vitamin levels to really see what's going on. If I have a client that is, you know, at a typical menopausal age, has all the classic symptoms of menopause, you don't really gain so much by doing what we call a Dutch test, which is a hormonal test, because you already know that estrogen is declining. This is a natural process. It depends very much on the client and the age of the client. If I would do hormonal testing, because it does give you other information as well. It's not just estrogen and progesterone. But majority of women, you know, they know they're in menopause, and we know the things that we should do to benefit them during this time. So it's really putting an action plan in place, and it's a bit like a puzzle, really, because everyone's very individual, and putting all those pieces together to really find out what works for them best.
It is a puzzle, because sometimes we can get too much estrogen, or rather the estrogen symptoms increase. It may not be necessarily extra estrogen. It might be that progesterone gets too low and then doesn't balance out the estrogen. So there are a number of factors which can cause that imbalance, can't they? And then when we gain weight, even though you lose the production of estrogen from the uterus, your fat cells apparently still keep producing estrogen. So that if we're carrying a lot of extra weight, we might actually be overproducing estrogen. And then the food supply can have estrogen mimicking chemicals in certain foods, such as, you know, they all tell you to have, you know, soy and, you know, but then, you know, it mimics estrogen. And for someone who's in overload, that may not be necessarily a good thing for them to have. What's your experience in that area?
Yeah, phytoestrogens, which are plant estrogens, when we look at the research of them, they're a similar chemical structure to estrogen, but they're not estrogen. And they've actually been shown, you know, soya, flax seeds, linseeds are another example. They're in a lot of plant-based foods, that they can actually be beneficial for menopausal symptoms because of the chemical structure of them. They're not estrogen, so a phytoestrogen wouldn't increase your estrogen levels. They can and have been shown in research to be actually beneficial for menopausal women because they can help regulate, they can, especially hot flashes, etc. They can actually help to reduce menopausal symptoms. So there's something that I recommend to clients to incorporate into their diet in moderation, because they're also a very good source of fiber and other nutrients. So phytoestrogens are actually beneficial for menopausal women.
And is there a difference? Sorry to interrupt. Is there a difference between the fermented version of soy? Is that like a better way to consume soy in a fermented form?
Fermented foods always have the added benefit of the probiotics, which feed and nourish and replace the gut bacteria. I mean, the microbiome is what we call our healthy gut bugs, and we've seen as well in research how beneficial they are for so many different things. So if you're eating fermented foods like fermented soya, you know, you're not only getting the benefits of the phytoestrogen, you're also getting what we call the probiotics, which are the gut bugs, which also are beneficial for menopausal women for many reasons, for brain health, for gut integrity. Estrogen again is needed for the health of the gut, and we can see when we go into menopause that we can suddenly become constipated, we can get what we call leaky gut. We find that our digestion doesn't work like it used to. So incorporating fermented foods is a really good thing to do for our gut health and our overall health.
Yes, digestion seems to slow down with aging, doesn't it? It's we produce less stomach acid, and then that can cause too many bad bugs collecting and causing gas and GERD and reflux and all sorts of things. And it can be associated with low thyroid, so hypothyroidism, which is one of the symptoms I was diagnosed with. I had Hashimoto's hypothyroidism. At the time I was in menopause at 51. And I eventually developed severe heart arrhythmias as well. That's when all my systems crashed. And I had no energy, and it was really awful. But I used a lot of multivitamins from the health food store, but nothing seemed to be doing the trick for me. I ate a healthy, fresh food diet. I avoided highly processed foods, you know, had some regular moderate exercise. I thought I was doing all the right things, but what I didn't realize was my digestive system wasn't digesting the food very well, despite how good the food was, despite the quality of the food. Because and as soon as I got some extra digestive enzymes, things started to help a lot. But it was really the extra magnesium I was able to absorb through my skin that helped me get over the line, where I really felt significant difference in being calm and more relaxed. And then I became one of those that sailed through menopause, and I didn't get the hot flushes. I might just have got a little bit warm every now and again. I took off my little cardigan, and a couple of minutes I put it back on again, and no big deal, no sweating and no waking up during the night. It was not uncomfortable at all. It was quite a good experience in some ways as well. I really liked the fact that I didn't have a period. I thought, I'm free, woohoo! But yes, it just comes down to finding out the missing link and what's missing in what you're already doing, because it's a holistic process. Do you find it's never really one thing, is it? It's how everything comes together.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so individual, isn't it, as well, that when I work with clients, I use what we call the functional medicine model, where you actually really look at the whole person. You don't just look at the symptom, you know, and you really, it's like peeling the layers of an onion. You know, you really get down to that root cause, whether it's digestion or migraines, you know, whatever the symptom is. because all our systems are connected. You know, everything, all systems affect how we feel, you know, especially digestion. I mean, the digestive tract, if you really get that working like it should, it makes you feel so much better, like you experienced, Sandy's. Digestion is key, because if you don't have enough enzymes, or your digestive tract isn't working like it should, you're not going to be absorbing the vitamins and the minerals and the nutrients that you need to feel great. So it's such a key thing, digestion. That's really one of the things that I always work with first with my clients.
And also what I've found with a lot of people is that without digestion working very well, they tend to move into acidosis. So the blood plasma and the tissue plasma become a little bit acidic. So below 7, where they need to be 7.35, slightly alkaline. And that helps the electrical system, because everything in the body is electrical. And so we also look after our good microbiome, the good bacteria in the gut, who like a slightly alkaline environment in the bowel. However, if we've been under a lot of stress and we've maybe burnt the candle at both ends, we're not eating the right kind of food, or maybe developed a sensitivity to sugar or simple carbohydrates like wheat is a big one. People can't metabolize that anymore, and it just gets put on straight away as fat. You don't even use it as energy. You still feel tired. It's not like the carbs are giving you any extra energy. And so these digestive issues and sugar sensitivities creep in a lot more during midlife. And I guess, is it your opinion that has something to do with that hormonal imbalance? The sensitivity?
Yeah, it again, you know, good old estrogen is needed for metabolic health. And we see women when they're in menopause and the estrogen levels are very low, that they can become insulin resistant. The increase in diabetes too in women in later life increases as well, because the stage after insulin resistance is diabetes too. And this is really, you know, your body doesn't become as sensitive to insulin as it did when you were younger. So, you know, when you're eating sugary, refined, processed carbohydrates, which push your blood sugar up, and then insulin, which is the hormone that your body releases to really enable your body to utilize this energy. It's kind of like the lock and key. It opens up the cell so your body can use the glucose, the energy, but it doesn't work as efficiently. Estrogen is needed for this process. So we see that women's blood sugar levels can become higher, and when insulin isn't working like it should, you know, that balance really becomes affected. So it's crucial to have a good diet and avoid all these sugary, refined, processed carbohydrates and sugary drinks, because they just shoot your blood sugar up and cause stress on the body. If we've got high blood sugar, it really sets off an array of different negative health outcomes on the systems of the body. You know, weight gain is one of those. If you've got high insulin levels, then you will store fat. So it's very important to eat a diet that balances blood sugar, crucial for menopausal women. And also, if you have higher blood sugar and your insulin isn't working like it should, it then triggers off an array of menopausal symptoms. Hot flashes get worse. You know, you have problems sleeping, you feel tired all the time, brain fog, you know, lack of concentration. Blood sugar balance is key, not only for menopausal women, you know, key in general for all ages.
Yes, and I think it's becomes more difficult to detox, because if the digestive system gets sluggish, then your detox organs, your filtering organs like kidneys and liver, start to struggle. to eliminate wastes and neutralize the free radicals and the acids. And if they build up in the body, it's a negative feedback loop again, because what I found in my research and study is that the body tends to put fat on to sequester the acids and the free radicals that it can't get rid of normally in the digestive system. If there's an overload, it spills out. It spills out into the lymph as well, and the lymph lets out under the skin, so we can even get terrible skin problems if the body gets too acidic. And then it starts to draw on the bones, because in order to neutralize the acids in the liquids of the body pulls calcium out of the bones. And there you have the beginning of osteoporosis, because calcium is an alkalizing mineral. And if you don't have enough other alkalis like magnesium, sodium bicarbonate in your food and your drink to help neutralize, then the next thing the body does is pull the calcium out. And then the problem is that the calcium can settle into the tissue and make it hard and stiff and creaky. That's the aging process, isn't it? We get hard and crunchy.
Yeah, exactly. Everything, it's not as flexible as it used to be. But yeah, that's very true, Sandy. The weakening of the bones, it's not just to do with the lack of estrogen. There's many other factors that come into play in the aging process. And I think something also interesting about the body systems is when we're chronically stressed, which, in society that we all, it seems that everybody seems to be suffering from stress, but stress is really the enemy of a menopausal woman, because what happens is, our body's very clever. It'll do what it needs to create homeostasis. Your adrenal glands, which sit on top of your kidneys, actually produce, when you're in postmenopause, you will produce a small amount of estrogen from the adrenal glands, and estrogen and progesterone. However, if you're chronically stressed, your body will always prioritize stress hormones, so cortisol, adrenaline, etc. So if you're constantly stressed, your body's going to be producing stress hormones. It won't produce any progesterone or estrogen. So you're going to have even less of these hormone levels in your system, which again, you can imagine triggers off all an array of symptoms and makes you feel, not as good and as healthy. So it's really important to manage stress. That is a key area in menopausal health. I mean, stress is a protective response that we need, but it was meant to be short-lived. It wasn't meant to be something that we're suffering chronic from.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be chronic. No. And yeah, so if the world is getting too crazy, turn off the TV and do things that, learn to meditate and just go outside and have a walk in nature. Drink a lot of water. I found that was very helpful, mineral water in particular. So we put magnesium chloride in the mineral water to help bring up the electrolyte content, and that helps the water become more hydrating. And as soon as you drink it, within a few minutes, your brain feels lifted and a little bit clearer. Because I think some of that brain fog in midlife is when we become dehydrated through acidosis, and we don't actually remember to drink like we should. There's something that goes wrong with the thirst mechanism where we don't even realize we're dehydrated. And that can become a problem, especially for your brain, which uses half the water supply that you drink. So
yeah, it's interesting. It's the thirst, and there's some sort of connection between declining estrogen and us not being able to we don't feel as thirsty, even though our bodies need water. We don't get that thirst mechanism. We don't fully understand that yet, but I think it's fascinating, really, because it's so true what you said, Sandy. Even though you're dehydrated, your body doesn't tell you to drink.
No, and you notice it when it gets worse as you get older if you go into the old age homes. that they could quite happily not drink anything, or maybe one cup of tea in 24 hours, and they're quite all right. And I know that my mother and my husband's mother, they don't want to drink a lot so they don't have to pee so often. So,
Yeah.
it's always a balancing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. So hydration is key for, even if you're going to just do one thing, if you drink more water, you will feel better.
Yes, and you'll stay juicier, younger and juicier and more flexible, because it's the minerals and the water that come together that hold the water into the cell, that make everything flow better. So the nerve messages, the electrical signals, you need to be juicy and flexible for everything to work like it should. So I know we can't stave off the aging process forever, but we can slow it down a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I love the word juicy. That's really, really good way to describe it.
Yeah, so before we finish, if you want to say anything more to people in summary, and also let them know how to contact you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sandy. I think really, when it comes to menopause, it's such a big area, isn't it? There's so many things that you can really do to improve your health. But when you look at, we were talking about the puzzle earlier. You need to look at your nutrition, make sure you're eating a whole foods diet, get rid of all the non-nutritional foods, lifestyle. Exercise, look at sleep. Sleep is a key thing for menopausal women, and that can be quite a tricky area. And really, just look after yourself. I think it's a time in a woman's life where we have to realize that we can't behave like we did when we were younger. Our bodies just can't handle it. So really allowing yourself the time to look after yourself and do lots of self-care and get support and help if you need it. Go and talk to your doctor about hormone replacement therapy if that's something for you. But I always say knowledge is power. Get the knowledge that you need, and then you make the decision yourself what you want to do.
Yes, well, I think go for the natural methods first. That's in my book. The use of medications may not even be warranted, or it may be if all the other things you've tried doesn't work. And there are also many practitioners that use natural hormone balancing. They don't use the synthesized versions because apparently there are differences in the symptoms or the side effects, and the natural versions are more tolerable for people. But definitely there's a trick, I guess, to getting things balanced the right way, and it's very individual. So always check with a professional that specializes in that area would be my recommendation. And yeah, self-care, and take a pause more often. And it's okay to allow yourself to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with you. And if anyone wants any, to contact me or has any questions, you really can find me on my website, which is Alison Bladh, BLADH.com. There's also a resources page there with lots of free downloads and recipe books and really ideas of how you should be eating during this time in your life.
Oh, great. Very practical things, recipes. That's good. Just have it in front of you and follow the bouncing ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sure people will get a huge amount out of it. I know I did. And I've gone through it. And I help a lot of people as well who are just starting. I had one lady, a friend of mine actually, who rang me in tears, thinking she was pregnant because her period stopped. And I said, didn't you just have a 50th birthday or heading up to your 50th? She says, yes. I said, well, did you consider it was menopause? Oh, she says, oh no. Oh, it was like a extraordinary idea because she hadn't thought of herself in the perimenopause stage. But yes, it can happen. And yeah, so if you're concerned at all, get it checked out. And yeah, it may not be that you're pregnant at all.
No, exactly. That would be a shock at 50, wouldn't it?
It has happened though.
Yeah, it has happened.
Anyway, thank you so much. And hopefully you'll join us again in the future for another podcast.
Oh, thank you, Sandy. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you.
Bye-bye. I hope you liked this conversation and will share it with others. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you want to listen to other Body Charge conversations, click like, subscribe, the bell icon, and click all notifications. Subscribe to our newsletter to get updates on blogs, podcasts, videos, and magnesium special offers at electromagnesium.com.au. Relax, recharge, and recover.